Welcome to Critical Thinking Deep Dives, a series dedicated to examining how narratives shape our understanding of complex issues. Here, we slow down, look closely, and separate the message from the methods used to deliver it.
In every corner of today's media landscape, we encounter claims wrapped in confidence, certainty, and emotion. Some are accurate, some are not, and some are engineered to bypass your reasoning entirely.
Our goal isn't to tell you what to think, but to show you how to think more clearly by recognizing logical fallacies, cognitive biases, and common errors in perception.
So take a breath, open your curiosity module, and prepare for a deeper look beneath the surface, because the most important questions usually start where the talking points end.
Okay, let's jump in. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're immersing ourselves in a really controversial analysis of a huge modern movement, MAHA, or Make America Healthy Again.
Right. And our focus for this deep dive is a very serious claim from a number of public health professionals.
A really serious claim. They're essentially saying that this movement and its key supporters like Callie Means isn't actually about reforming health.
Not at all. The central allegation we're analyzing from our sources is that MAHA functions as a Trojan horse.
A Trojan horse. So what does that mean in this context?
It means, according to them, that it's designed to distract us. It uses, very marketable wellness advice, some conspiratorial stories.
Things that get a lot of clicks.
Exactly. And while everyone's focused on that, the actual infrastructure of public health, the systemic supports, are being quietly gutted.
So the sources we're pulling from today, just to be clear, are critical analyses from health policy experts.
Yes, people who focus specifically on that intersection of public health, politics, and corporate influence. And their central thesis is, well, it's pretty jarring.
It is. The core argument from this critical analysis is that MAHA, I'm quoting here, isn't here to fix the system. It's here to protect it.
And the way they protect it, the sources claim, is by generating just enough controversy, enough of a focus on individual things like sugar is toxic.
Right, these very simple, powerful messages.
To distract from the dismantling of things like nutrition assistance programs or preventative care, the very things that act as a buffer for the most vulnerable people.
Okay, so if this critique is on the mark, the first move is all about controlling the narrative. The sources point a finger directly at Callie Means as being kind of central to this.
He's identified as being instrumental in that narrative shift.
So how does that alleged manipulation actually work?
The critics argue that he helps shift the conversation away from the really complex, evidence-based drivers of health things like poverty or environmental toxins, or whether you can even buy fresh food near your home.
Things that are hard to solve.
Very hard. And he redirects that energy toward simple individual choices and these, very compelling, often conspiratorial stories. It's described as an ideological sleight of hand.
So the source's argument is that the genius of this is that it takes a really attractive idea, personal responsibility, and uses it to mask a huge, complex policy failure.
It's shifting the burden.
Right, shifting the burden of a systemic problem onto the person who's already struggling inside that system.
Precisely. The sources say this ideological move encourages us to blame individuals for their health issues. And the claimed outcome here isn't better health for everyone.
What is it then?
It's about, and this is a quote, protecting an agenda that funnels resources upward. The analysis concludes that by getting you to focus on your personal diet while ignoring policy, the people struggling the most are left with even worse health.
This really pushes the conversation from wellness into pure politics. The critics seem to draw a very straight line between the MAA movement and a specific political alliance.
They do. They detail the MAA-Trump partnership. They don't frame it as a coincidence. They call it a clear political alliance that actively works against the public health goals it says it's for.
And they cite specific examples of that.
Oh, yeah. They point to policy consequences, like cutting funding for essential public health programs, appointing people with what they call anti-science agendas, and really critically, aligning with major corporate lobbyists.
And there was one recent policy example in the material that really stood out on that alignment point.
Yes. The source highlights the administration siding with chemical lobbyists, and they cite the EPA moving to approve new PFAS-based pesticides.
PFAS, just to remind everyone, those are the forever chemicals, right?
That's right, the ones that don't break down in the environment or in our bodies. The sources argue that prioritizing the approval of chemicals like these is just a clear-cut case of corporate interests winning out over long-term public health.
Okay, so that really sets the stage. MAHA allegedly distracts while policy undermines. Let's pivot now to what the sources identify as the actual systemic drivers of the U.S. health crisis. I mean, if we're being distracted, what should we be looking at?
The critics argue it's deeply multifactorial. It's systemic. It's the result of decades of certain policies.
What kind of policies?
Specifically, pro-corporation policies that prioritize profits and growth above all other values, including people's health. It's not one thing. It's a whole ecosystem of, well, a failure.
An ecosystem. Let's break that down. What are the key systemic problems these critics say we absolutely have to tackle?
They lay out three core pillars. First, economic policies and massive income inequality. That just creates the perfect breeding ground for poor health.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the second?
The entire agricultural system. The argument is that it's deeply flawed and subject to such intense corporate influence that it dictates what we grow and what ends up on our plates.
And the third pillar seems to be about the healthcare delivery system itself. Is that right?
Absolutely. The sources describe a deeply strained healthcare system that fundamentally undervalues the professions that actually provide care and support. We're talking about nurses, counselors, social workers.
Why are they undervalued?
Because, as the sources claim, they aren't immediately profitable for corporations. The whole system is structured to reward expensive procedures and administrative bloat, not preventative care that keeps a community healthy. That, they say, is a systemic driver of poor health.
It's a really stark contrast. You know, if MAA tells you to focus on an expensive supplement, the solutions from these critics are massive policy overhauls.
Completely different worlds, which is why the distraction claim is so powerful. The source material lists solutions to tackle these root causes, like, for instance, reforming agricultural subsidies.
So instead of subsidizing corn for syrup, you subsidize
fruits, vegetables, legumes, actual nutrient-dense foods. And of course, that would be an immediate challenge to the profits of big agribusiness.
I can imagine. What else?
They also call for strengthening local food systems, actively addressing food deserts.
Yeah.
You know, places where people literally can't buy an apple. They also suggest regulating food marketing, especially to kids, and using antitrust enforcement to break up the power of huge food conglomerates.
So it really boils down to money and power.
The core goal, according to the critics, has to be limiting corporate lobbying so that financial interests no longer get to decide public health policy for everyone else.
And this is where it all seems to come together. The critics argue that while you're being told to worry about conspiracy theories, the political machine is attacking the very programs designed to help. Let's start with the Affordable Care Act, the ACA.
Right. The critique looks at the political framing around the goal to repeal the ACA. The current talking point is that the premium subsidies are a massive giveaway to insurance companies.
And the source material has a strong opinion on that framing.
It does. It labels that argument wildly disingenuous.
That's pretty blunt. Why do the critics think it's so dishonest?
Because, as the sources point out, the lawmakers making this claim are often the very same ones who consistently voted to remove profit caps on insurers. They're the ones who push for high-deductible plans that put the maximum cost on the patient, and who have blocked, time and again, any kind of public option that would create real competition for private insurance.
So the argument is, if they really wanted to go after insurance company profits, they had plenty of chances to do it through regulation or competition.
Exactly. But instead, they're choosing to attack the one thing, the subsidies, that keeps millions of working and middle-class people insured.
So the logical conclusion from the sources is what?
That if these lawmakers were suddenly serious about reining in insurance profits, the logical next step is a universal healthcare system. By only targeting the subsidies, the sources say, the real goal is just to destabilize the market and increase the number of uninsured Americans, not to actually fix it.
Okay, so from healthcare access to food access. The sources remind us that public health is just fundamentally about making sure people have stability, care, and enough to eat. Which brings us to SNAP.
The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Yeah, SNAP is a massive program. It reaches something like 42 million people a year. That's about 1 in every 8 Americans.
And the sources use hard data to show how effective it is.
Very effective. It's a critical anti-poverty tool.
Wow.
In 2021 alone, for example, the program lifted 2.4 million people out of poverty. That includes 1 million children.
Those are incredible numbers. And ensuring families can afford food must have huge public health benefits down the line.
The benefits are scientifically documented. SNAP participation is linked to better birth outcomes, like healthier birth weights. For seniors, it's linked to lower hospitalization rates. It directly reduces overall healthcare costs. It's basically preventative care in the form of a grocery budget.
And despite the rhetoric you sometimes hear about waste, the sources say it's actually really efficient economically.
The economic impact is a huge factor. The data suggests every dollar in SNAP benefits generates about $1.50 to $1.80 in local economic activity. It's a stimulus, and fraud rates are consistently tiny, just 1 or 2%.
So we have a program with clear data showing it reduces poverty, improves health, and stimulates the economy. But the sources suggest the political goal is to paint it as ineffective.
And this is where the critics argue the political division comes in, creating this narrative of manufactured resentment.
Oh, so?
They actually cite the comedian George Carlin. They say he summed up the alleged strategy perfectly. He had this observation: that's the way the ruling class operates. They try to divide the rest of the people. They keep the lower and the middle classes fighting with each other so that they, the rich, can run off with all the money.
Wow. So the takeaway from the sources is that SNAP works, but it's politically useful for you to believe that it doesn't.
That's the argument. The system's beneficiaries benefit when the rest of us are divided.
It's a very cynical view of policy. For our last segment, let's look at how medical misinformation gets woven into this whole strategy. The sources cite credentialed professionals, even a registered dietitian, spreading claims that target pregnant women and parents.
And this is maybe the most dangerous part of the critique. It directly erodes trust in the evidence-based medicine that keeps people, especially children, safe.
When it comes from someone with professional authority,
The potential for real-world harm is immense.
Okay, so let's walk through the counter-evidence the sources provide for a few of these common claims. Let's start with the push for raw milk.
The source material is really clear on this. Pasteurization is one of the greatest public health achievements in history. It basically wiped out diseases like tuberculosis and typhoid that used to be widespread. The idea that raw milk is nutritionally superior, it's just not supported by science.
And the risk is real.
The risk is incredibly high. The sources cite data showing that cheese made from unpasteurized milk is 50 to 160 times more likely to cause a listeria infection. That is a staggering number. Okay, next up. The claim that the glucola drink, which screens for gestational diabetes, is toxic. The sources just flatly call this nonsense. Glucola is one of the most studied substances given to pregnant women. It is the only validated way to screen for gestational diabetes, which is a serious risk to both the mother and the baby.
And the toxicity claim.
It's rhetorical. The critique points out that you can't talk about toxicity without talking about dose. The amount in the glucola drink is perfectly safe. Refusing the test, they say, is what puts the pregnancy at risk.
And finally, what about the opposition to the standard vitamin K shot for newborns?
This has been a routine standard of care since 1961 for over 60 years. Infants are born with very low levels of vitamin K, which is essential for blood clotting. Without that shot, they're at risk for a sudden internal bleed,
Which can be catastrophic.
fatal, or cause permanent brain damage. The sources confirm that decades of research show it's safe. Side effects are exceptionally rare. I think they said one severe allergic reaction has been reported in 63 years.
The source material does not hold back its criticism of professionals who spread these claims.
No, it's described as a professional ethics violation. When someone uses their title, their authority, to promote blatant misinformation that goes against medical consensus, it causes real harm.
So if we zoom out and synthesize this whole analysis, the central finding from the critical sources is that movements like MAHA are allegedly a highly effective political tool.
A weapon, even.
Right. They shift responsibility for these massive health crises onto the individual, using these catchy, controversial claims about food, just as the systemic supports are being attacked.
And what's maybe most insightful is an observation the sources make about public health programs themselves. They say public health is often a victim of its own success.
I love that paradox. What do they mean by that in practical terms?
It means that when these programs are working perfectly, when your water is clean, your food is safe, vaccines prevent outbreaks, no one notices.
They become invisible.
Completely invisible. And that makes them incredibly easy to attack, to defund, to frame as wasteful government spending. It's only when they fail, when you have a massive food recall or an epidemic, that we're all reminded of how much those invisible systems were protecting us.
That leaves us with a pretty profound thought. We rely on these unseen systems every single day, and if trust in the evidence behind them is eroded, we're flying blind. Absolutely. So the challenge for you, the listener, is to think about this. What specific unnoticed public health program, like the one that ensures the safety of the food you ate today or monitors the air you're breathing, might be protecting you right now? And how vulnerable would it be if the trust in that system was gone and it was suddenly cut? That, the sources argue, is the real cost of the distraction. Before we close, let's take a moment to examine the thinking traps woven through this discussion. What we explored today wasn't just policy. It was a demonstration of how persuasion operates when complex problems are simplified into easy narratives.
Classic tactic, oversimplification. When a system has 1,000 moving parts, all you need is a catchy slogan to make people forget 999 of them.
And then there's the shift in blame. Instead of acknowledging structural causes, things like access, inequality, or environmental conditions, the burden is placed squarely on the individual. That's the fundamental attribution error.
Pair that with a little fear. Nothing overrides reason faster than a well-aimed scare story. Fear is the original operating system exploit.
And underpinning it all is manufactured distrust. Undermining expertise creates a vacuum that can be filled by whoever speaks the loudest, not whoever brings the best evidence.
So here's your diagnostic checklist. If a claim feels too simple, too blame-heavy, or too fear-driven, pause. Ask what's missing, who benefits, and whether the explanation fits the complexity of the real system.
Critical thinking isn't about cynicism, it's about clarity.
And clarity is the first step to staying immune to bad reasoning.
Before we finish, I'd like to leave you with this. In every complex society, there are always forces competing to shape what we see and what we ignore. The most effective distortions aren't loud, they're subtle. A shifted focus here, a simplified story there, a little fear added at the edges. And before long, we begin to mistake the narrative for the truth. Critical thinking is the discipline of slowing down, stepping back, and asking, does this explanation honor the complexity of reality? Stay curious, stay attentive, and remember, clarity isn't found in the loudest voices, but in the evidence quietly waiting to be examined.